We are live.
Hello, hello.
Okay, so let's have a look at. Okay, here I can see the comments. Good. We are live. Welcome to the Tea Crane. Welcome for another chat as we do these live chats. And this time we chose a later time in Japan. You see, it's getting a little bit darker outside, so it's a bit different from the other times. And we actually hope to get a bit more interaction this way, so that we can, get more people to join the live, to actually interact with us. And so I've got my comments screen open here. It'd be really great if we could get some comments from everyone.
Yes.
And ask us some questions, get some conversations going. That'd just be great. And in the meantime, we're just going to sip some tea and talk a bit about the things that have been going on at the Tea Crane recently. And it's harvesting season, so very soon some new Shincha teas will be coming out. I've got a few that I'm ordering at the moment that are heading this way. So very soon I should be able to offer some Shincha teas, and so I hope everyone looks out to those. Hello everyone! I see that a few people are already signing on, and that everyone is getting to watching us. Leave a comment. Tell us where you're watching from.
Yes, please.
And let's see some interaction. How are you?
Pretty good. A little tired. It's been a long day for me too.
Been a long day at the Tea Crane too.
I'm not used to coming here this late in the evening. So,
No.
What's this tea?
This is a sencha from Nara, one from last year still. It's just a good sencha to, relax a bit.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Relaxing is a...
Relax, wake up a bit, and let's get into the talk, yeah.
Yep.
I'm actually still a bit tired because I came back from Tokyo.
Right.
I've spent a few days in Tokyo the past week, since last weekend, because we had an event, an exhibition, demonstration, show, market, pop-up shop, for which I used my new natural immunity series. And I think we should introduce the natural immunity series in today's talk a bit as well. It's a more casual series to begin with, really.
More casual?
Yeah, because usually the teas that I select are like very specific, very specialized. I like to look for teas that are small batch, grown from seed,
organic,
single cultivar, and of course they got to be organic. And I always forget to say that. For me, just like tea equals organic. It's like so there is no other for me.
So very specialty teas.
So very specialty. And the people that I have here that come into the store, the customers too, they're often sort of confused by the selections they have, because it's very uncommon to have a selection that is this specialized.
They're used to seeing sencha blends, like a not single cultivar, not organic.
It's completely different if you visit a tea store in Kyoto, where basically the line of quality is determined by the price on the price card, and so you know what type of quality you'll get with a tea that costs 1,000 yen for 100 gram, or a tea that costs 2,000 yen for 50 gram. You know that is going to be the higher grade, and that is really how it is determined. And so if they walk in here, it's I'm all over the place. I've got 30 grams of that tea, 40 grams of that tea. I mean, everyone has seen my my web store. And the pricing too is very, how should I say, different for every tea. So it's not an easy product to purchase unless you have a lot of explanation.
Mm.
So I thought it's better to try to approach a broader
Mm.
market
Mm.
of people that are not as into tea or don't have as much interest in tea as I have. Maybe a hurdle too high. But to create something that I can use to, well, introduce people for the first time or maybe
Something
in a
that's a little
casual way.
more accessible to people who, like you said, aren't as experienced with tea, aren't as knowledgeable about
Yeah.
this side of tea.
And what I've found is that, especially in Japan, when it comes to matcha, the common perception is that matcha can only be drunk as a part of tea ceremony.
Hmm.
It's not something that you just whip up in the morning and or throw into your smoothie or
Where you get it at Starbucks.
there might be some who do that. Yeah.
I guess hojicha is making a bit of a move. There's more hojicha
Hmm.
lattes and ice cream and things. And there's
Yeah,
definitely still matcha though.
there's that matcha as well. But I think in Japan, if you say matcha, it's almost, oh yeah, it equals tea ceremony.
Mm.
So I want to show that matcha does not only relate to tea ceremony, but it could actually be something more in your day-to-day life. If you look at how matcha is consumed in the West, it's a completely different
Oh
story.
yes. I think
It's-
people would be surprised to hear that that Japanese people also don't drink matcha or even really green tea as a habit. At least they don't brew it themselves. Of course, we have a lot of pet bottle, like pre-made tea drinks you can buy in the convenience stores, but people don't really make a habit of brewing their own tea as much as I think people outside of Japan might expect.
Oh yeah, it's not as big a culture or a thing anymore. Definitely, especially with young people. Not everyone has a teapot. Not most people don't have teapots actually, so they can't really brew the their leaf teas. Tea bags are a big thing, but most people really drink coffee in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And matcha is not that big of a thing. Most people that I encounter here in the store that have an interest in matcha don't have a tea whisk.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, I want to do this, so
how do I make it?
I gotta get the tea, and then also get a whisk and a bowl and a scoop and get all the equipment.
It's another hurdle to getting into tea.
There's of course always the equipment that you need. Yeah. But then if you look at the West, people are like just putting a spoon of matcha in a glass of water and just mixing it around.
Little hand stirs.
The hand stir. There's the throw it in the mixer with your smoothie, whatever. I don't know. Sprinkle it over your ice cream. It all defeats the purpose.
Well, it's still.
It all defeats the purpose.
It all defeats the purpose. It is still healthy, but I guess if you're eating it on ice cream, yeah.
Well, plus minus, make the calculation. It's like the ice cream gets less unhealthy.
Well, there's something to be said for that, I guess. Hey, maybe they just like the taste.
Sure, that's fine. It defeats the purpose still.
Well, anyway.
So I made a matcha series with purpose.
I think a lot of people, a common question I see, I think, is will matcha have this effect, or what kind of tea will have this effect, or if I want to wake up in the morning, which tea is best? So it's kind of an answer to that question.
Yes, and I mean, the proper answer to that question really is to go out and drink a lot of matcha yourself and feel which one fits best to you. To me, tea drinking is a story of energy. It's got nothing to do really with the actual chemical components of it and the measurements that go with it. But it's more a story of the energy. What does the tea do to your body, and how does your body react to it? And when I think of this is the tea that I want to drink in the morning, then it's because I've tried very different teas, and I like a certain balance, a certain lightness, um, something that is not too heavy on the stomach when you begin the day.
Definitely.
And that is how I got to this this selection as well. Because can you read the three names?
Yes, there's energy boost here. There's awareness, and what's the last one? I can't read it. Awakening. That's right.
And awakening is for the morning.
Really, is it?
Yes, it is. I chose awakening for the morning, and it is a lighter tea, as opposed to awareness, which is more blended. It's got more different types of different teas in it. I usually also don't really work with blends, but in this case, I thought bringing something that is, well, if you've had matcha before and you know a bit about this is what matcha is supposed to taste like, then this will be very close to it. And that's how I made this selection. And so awareness really is a good blend of different types of tea leaves, and it's quite heavy. It has a lot of umami. It's quite heavy. It's sturdy. It's got good energy, a lot of power. And because it's got a lot of amino acids, which are expressed in the intensity of the umami flavor, you can already understand that it has a lot of a calming effect.
Yeah.
A calming effect, as well as it lifts you up, but it sort of more puts you down. It does both, but the put you down is heavier with that one. The opposite is true for the energy boost, where it puts you down, it opens your eyes, it creates clarity in your head, but then it gives you a kick in the butt because it's got a lot of good catechin power, a little bit of bitterness, more bitterness than opposed to, than the other two. And so I've just drunk teas, and I thought, well, if I'm going to drink this tea, then I'd like to have it in that occasion. Or if I'm in this kind of scenario, then I would like actually to have that tea. And it just, I've done none of the numbers. I did no calculations or measurements or chemical tests or whatever. I just drank it. And to me, these teas, they work best in these scenarios. And that's also how I suggest them. And so it's just a very simple entry-level basic series of matcha teas that are well, accessible to anyone.
You've done some of the legwork of trial and error, which people is probably pretty intimidating for people who are getting into tea.
Well, yeah, before you start drinking matcha, you have to go through all the rubbish that is available on the market to begin. Like go through all your supermarket teas, understand what matcha is not like or supposed to be like, and then gradually get confident with spending a little bit more money on some higher quality products, and then you got to dig through all the different qualities.
Yeah, hopefully you get that far. I think a lot of people try it once and they don't make it right. And
you don't take the journey and you just come immediately here. I've done the legwork, as you said. And it's shown actually to be very successful, because the event in Tokyo was quite successful. Really, I had a lot more interaction and sold a lot more of these teas than I was actually expecting, to mostly a Japanese audience.
Oh, that's good.
And everyone was just well, it shows that I did a good design and marketing job.
It was a good response. The response that you wanted.
I don't know if that's the response that I wanted. I don't know if I was really looking for anything. But what I experienced was that people reacted to the design. And oh, hello.
Do we have a question?
Hello from LA.
Oh, LA. Is it?
Hello
What time
from
is it
Kyoto.
there? It's pretty early, isn't it?
You're up early?
Are you up late? Well, it's gotta be like 3 a.m. What time is it? It's gotta be a very strange hour right now.
Well, thanks for staying up late
thank you.
and watching. So the response that I got really to these teas, and especially to these tins, was that first of all, people didn't really know what was in it until they had to look at it.
So they were pulled in by the design, and they thought they wanted to know what was actually inside.
And it looked like cosmetic products to a lot of people. It's like, oh, is this cosmetics? It's like, yeah, you can put it on your face. It was funny. It was a good start of the interaction because people get interested in it. Then I make a joke, and people get confused, and then of course you get their attention. So it was a good sales ploy. Something that it's new for me too. It's actually like doing some good marketing work, trying some new approach. And the design itself too was received pretty well. So the freshness of the outlook, etc. And then for the Japanese, I had Japanese names as well, which are half really the meaning of the English, plus a bit of a Buddhist touch. There's awakening. Does not only mean waking up in the morning, but also spiritual awakening. There's awareness is just becoming fresher in the mind, but also in your spiritual journey, you cultivate your awareness. And so it's kind of being in the moment. And energy boost. Well, that's actually just energy boost. There's nothing Buddhist about it. There's boostist about it. So
well, it sounds like there was a good response to
the response was really good, and people were like, oh, Bairiki, like power boost, yeah, gotta get that. Like I need a pick me up in the day,
so I can do
it was a very interesting experience for me because people were not so much interested in really the contents of the tea and where it came from and who produced it and all the things that I'm very interested in. They were just like, oh, power boost.
That sounds good.
Yay, I need that. Let's have that. Or just the sound of the Japanese for awakening that I chose is kaigan. It's basically opening the eyes.
Oh, that's... I guess I'll pick that one up. Never mind.
And people were like, oh yeah, I'll get that. That sounds cool. So I was surprised really how much people make choices based on the way something looks and then how it sounds, the name of it.
Yeah, I think there's a surprising amount of that. I mean, just in everyday life, the first impression is often very influential in how you think about a certain thing. And I mean, if people don't really know very much about the things of tea that you're interested in, such as where it's from, organic, those kind of thing, if they don't really know much about that, then they don't really have any other way to make a judgment on it or or have an opinion on it. So like really they just look at it and they see what the name is, and that's kind of their only metric.
Yes, exactly, because even if you read the explanation, give it a try. It won't make any sense.
Okay, here's energy boost. The cold is your warm friends.
Oh wait, go with awakening.
That one's better?
That one's too far away. Yes.
Too far away. Okay. Okay, here's awakening. Fuel your morning. Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Align your body with the motions of the earth. Open your spirit to the warmth of the sun. Let the morning invigorate your every cell. Fuel your morning. And then here's it's like
So
it sounds good. There's
yeah,
definitely some meaning there.
it sounds good. There's some meaning there, but what does it say about the tea, and why does it have to be on an explanation sheet for a tea?
Mm.
You don't have to give an answer. There is none.
I was gonna say
it's
well,
an invitation to meditation,
Hmm.
and that's what I like to. I mean, I can't just simply make a regular product. It's just impossible. I just can't. I tried all this stuff, and then somewhere there's got to be like something broken. It's like this. Oh no, this does not work. It's broken.
That sounds nice though. Clearly it worked.
But it did work because people were like, they were reading it.
They're like, what does this mean?
And then I get questioned, what does this mean? And I said, well,
it's a good conversation starter too.
Well, I will give you the pamphlet, take it home, have the tea, and read it over again and see what it means to you next time. I don't intend really to give the explanation. It's more an invitation to meditation, really. And it means something to me, but that's something that is, I think, very Japanese and maybe also somewhat tea-like. To me, these sentences have a profound meaning.
But to somebody else.
So they come from what I sense in life, or how I perceive this tea, and it's just words that give a physical an expression to a sentiment that I experienced. But for me, that is, I put that sentiment into those words. It's got its physical shape now. For me, that's the end of the story there. But then someone else takes those words again. There's no really any explaining for me to do. They take it up, and that's the start again for them to gather the meaning from the words again. So there's a new journey that goes on there. And my job is done. Now it's on to the receiver of those words to do something with it again. And apparently that's very, very Japanese, kind of just leave it out in the open and don't give the meaning. Just let someone else discover the meaning.
And they might have end up with a totally different experience of those words than you do.
Yes. And it's absolutely possible, and that's absolutely fine.
Yep. Yeah, I think it is also. I agree that it's very tea-like, because, I mean, there's so much variation within tea that you really can't say. There's really no objective, no objectivity about. Or sorry, if it's subjective, it's objective. There's no objectivity about which tea is better, because everyone kind of has their own experience.
Oh yes, subjective. Yeah.
I always mix those two up. There's not one single answer. Everybody has their own experience, and they bring their own experiences of their life and their lifestyle and their taste palette, and they have their own experience with the tea, which I think is great.
Yeah, exactly.
It's what makes tea such a dynamic
product.
Hobby product, lifestyle.
Absolutely. And with the tea ceremony as well, I mean, the occasion that is created around the drinking of, well, the communal sharing of a bowl of matcha is, in the host's experience, created around a certain narrative. But when it's put out there, that narrative is received by the guests again in another way, in their own way. And so, to a certain extent, the host has to perceive what the guests are going to get out of it and how they might experience it. But then there's also this completely unknown world of how it really is going to evolve and develop. And so for the host to see how his creation then further takes shape as it is being received by his guests, that just is one of the more beautiful things of tea ceremony. And so in a way, I mean, I bring that spirit into my conventional products. And I've also made it very easy though for some people to choose based off these matchas are vegan, organic, handmade, gluten-free, keto-friendly, dairy-free, sugar-free, and paleo. So it fits your every diet. And I also, for the very first time, because not everyone has a teapot at home, I have tea bags. I've got black tea and green tea tea bags. And those, they went out like crazy.
Oh, I bet they did. Even more accessible than matcha.
They were very accessible. Also, price-wise, they were much more accessible. And they just went like, I mean,
that's great.
I sold a ton of them. Yeah.
So I think I haven't, I might have asked a little bit before you went, but what exactly was the event you were doing? How were you?
I made a YouTube video about my stay.
Oh, you did, right.
Yeah, I made a YouTube video starting from here in Kyoto, then getting on the Shinkansen and going to Tokyo, arriving in the hotel, and talking a bit about how I travel and stay and how I keep my habits while I'm not in the safety of my my own dwellings.
Did you bring tea for yourself to drink?
Yes, a whole set, different types. Check out the video. And I also talked about what went on in the event. But what we did there really was it was an invitation to enjoy tea ceremony in a closer proximity to everyday life. So if you don't have, well, most people don't have a tea chamber, proper straw matted flooring, the alcove and everything, it becomes very difficult to do tea ceremony. And the idea was to say, well, you would need one, but if you don't have one, there are ways to enjoy tea ceremony, and there are ways to enjoy the beauty of the art and the craft. And one of the ways that we proposed was to create your own tea box. You have a little box in which you put your tea bowl, your tea scoop, your tea whisk, some tea. You have some nice cloths to wrap your tea bowls, or you have a pouch made for your tea bowl to keep it safe. And you've got these utensils in the one box that you have, and you can put that somewhere in your house. And anytime you think, well, let's have a tea moment, you bring out your box and you start making tea. So you can actually, the box becomes the replacement of the tea chamber in your house as people are starting to live smaller and smaller now. And of course, for that box, you need different items. So there was one person who does box coordination, someone who makes the boxes and gets stuff in it and makes different, styles and sets. And then there's someone who makes the tea scoops. So there was a part where his wares were exhibited. There was someone who made the tea bowls, and he had his tea bowls on in display. There was someone who made the shifuku, the bags for the tea bowls and other tea vessels. And I was there with my tea, and there were some fabrics as well. There was someone who did in clothing. So
wow, they really covered all the bases.
We did cover a very broad area, yeah. And well, tea, of course, you need tea to enjoy tea. You can have all the equipment, but if you don't have tea, you're not going to enjoy tea. It's it seems the most, how should I say, insignificant part of developing a tea ceremony, but it is the most important. Without it, it doesn't happen.
I think I've heard a phrase. I don't know if it's like a Japanese phrase or if it's just a common thing to say in any language, but you can say somebody's existence has become like air to you, which means, I mean, at first glance, at least when I heard it the first time, I thought it sounded kind of like they're insignificant, like you don't really notice that they're there. But also, like if it's not there, then like really you can't do anything. So it's like air.
It's like air. You need it, but you don't think about it.
Yeah.
That's what I say always about the role of tea in tea ceremony.
Yes.
It's like the daikoku bashira. The daikoku bashira in a Japanese house is the central beam, the central pillar that keeps the entire structure straight. You put the daikoku bashira there, the central pillar is there, and then you develop everything around it. You develop walls and beautiful windows and some beautiful cut-out frames for above your doors, and you have a roof, and you have different rooms, and in your rooms you put some decoration, and you have a stool, and everyone talks about all the stuff that you have there, but no one ever talks about the daikoku bashira. But if you take the daikoku bashira away, the entire thing collapses. So tea really is like the central pillar of a house. It's like, as you say, it's like air.
Don't think about it, but if it's gone, you notice.
You notice, yeah. If that's gone, everything's gone.
Everything else doesn't work.
Well, I think last week we got cut off a little abruptly as we were talking about matcha. We were talking about matcha a little bit now as well, but more about the natural immunity series that I have. Last week we were in the middle of talking about
grades, was it?
Quality and grades of tea. I think you asked a question about what the difference is between this culinary grade, ceremonial grade, all these kinds of gradings that are
used more in the
somewhat
West.
common in I think mostly in the US though.
Oh, really? Yeah, I would believe that.
Well, I would say that actually there is no regulation around those grades at all. And most of it is, well, improvised. So anyone can basically just call their tea whatever they want it and then say this is ceremonial grade
because I say it is.
Because I say it is, or because it I don't know.
Or
I don't know how they come to
the brand has two different ones, and one is lower quality.
Lower quality, so and yeah.
They just attach the names to it.
But surprisingly, a lot of those actually I tend not to want to use for tea ceremony at all. And if a ceremonial tea is good enough for ceremonial use, then usually it is just enough to make a bowl of thin tea with. But I wouldn't really use it for anything else. Whereas when I do tea ceremony, I consider what is ceremonial suitable for koicha, for thick tea, because thick tea is really what tea is. Thin tea, usucha, is just an abbreviation of what thick tea is. And so it doesn't enjoy as much, well, it's not as highly esteemed as koicha. And koicha is also the tips of the leaf, the very buds that are picked by hand, and they're the softest, sweetest, highest quality leaf that is used for it. So it becomes possible to really produce that enormously dense concoction where you use a ton of tea powder, a ton of matcha, and just a little bit of hot water, and then blend it into that paste that has almost the consistency of paint. If you hold your bowl, you have to wait for it to come down. And if you want to drink something that dense, that intense, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
And in tea ceremony terms, what is ceremonial is really the service of koicha, of thick tea. Thin tea is more like a simple gathering where you have a light beverage and just
chat a little bit
and come back down to, well, basically come back down to the daily life. It's the connection between the very formal setting of koicha and
everyday life.
Just everyday life. The mess of everyday life. So it's a little bit of chaos in between.
So the koicha is very the default.
For me, really, yeah. If I look at quality of matcha, I always try to figure out, is it suitable for koicha or not? And then, if it's not, the question is if it's suitable for thin tea or not. If I whisk it up as a frothy bowl of tea, does it produce a beautiful froth? Is it? Of course, the color is also a little bit important, but if we're going to go for flavor and fragrance components first, because that's really what matters, then the question is it creamy? Does it have some bitter notes, but also some sweetness, some savoriness? Is it pleasant to drink?
That's important.
If it's not, it's definitely not anywhere near ceremonial. Or what would be intended by ceremonial. I have no idea what it really means, but I guess for me that is what it should mean. And anything under that is, well,
don't worry, but you don't mess with that.
Culinary. I wonder. I can see why you would use culinary, because it works better in matcha lattes.
You wouldn't want to
You can throw it into your smoothie. If you just want the color and the experience of matcha in something that you make, the only thing that you really need is greenness and bitterness. Because the umami is going to be overtaken by the thickness of the milk and the sugar. You won't get the fine notes out of it at all. So
definitely wouldn't want to use a tea that really has all of those notes.
You don't want to use koicha for your
matcha lattes.
No, I would avoid that, and I would really go for something low quality. But then if you think, well, I want to try what matcha is like really, and want to drink it pure as how you should do it, because we were joking about it in an earlier part, but if you mix it with sugar and all kinds of other stuff, then really it defeats the purpose of having matcha at all. It's not just because I had it, and I had it with a lot of other stuff, that the matcha is going to play out its effect. I think really if you want to have the benefit of matcha, first of all, again, and then we come back to our story of the medicinal benefits of tea drinking. I'll keep it very short. It's not, I drink matcha, now I get the benefits. No, it's I create the habit of drinking tea regularly, and over time, the benefit of it might also play out. I might also receive some of the benefits, but you'll never notice them because you don't drink matcha to treat something. You drink matcha not to have to treat something.
preventive.
It's preventative. Exactly. So the idea really to say, I need to lose weight.
So I'll drink matcha.
I'll just throw some matcha in my smoothie now. It's
It's
not going
really
to
how
work.
It works.
It won't work. Let me tell. I'll repeat that. It won't work. But if you say, I'm going to start my day with a healthy habit of drinking a bowl of matcha just before I get anything else, and I take a good quality one and I just drink it pure, whisk it up, then just that is going to provide you a lot of benefit, not only physically, but also mentally, because you are aware and you're doing something with a lot of attention.
You're more mindful.
So you can take any approach you want to it, but every approach has its own benefits, and that's important. You have to do what needs to be done to get a certain result. There is always the cause and result, and a lot of people live sort of in, they get all the results but never think about the cause. Whereas if you change your stance and think about which results do I want, then first you do something about the cause, the results will come in the end.
Very deep. Not very
I think a lot of people didn't get that.
That
So
you have to,
shall we repeat that?
we have to sit with that for a bit.
Yes, a lot of what I say is an invitation to meditation. Most people tend to reap the results, but forget that they're also at the source of the cause of that result. And if you realize that you are at the source of both the cause and the result, you can change the results that you're going to get by doing something about the cause. Which means that if you want to reap certain benefits, you cultivate certain habits. It's as simple as that.
Okay.
But of course, you have to sacrifice some things, and it's not always that easy, or it doesn't always seem that easy, unless you become able to be detached from everything.
It's sometimes not very easy to pinpoint an effect of something and then be able to figure out what the cause is actually, because we have so many factors influencing our life and our well-being and our mindfulness that sometimes it's hard to say, if I want to change this, then I have to do this cause. I have to change this cause.
The thing really is that you can't just change one thing and pinpoint that and keep the rest in place.
Oh, yes, that too.
If you start changing something,
everything else will follow.
The entire paradigm will shift. So that's what makes it seem such an enormous task. But really, you just have to start changing one thing. The rest will change automatically, and you don't have to do anything for it anymore. Right? Talking from experience, really. You just have to let it happen. And be willing to receive the results that you will get, which is also a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. More than people would think.
We're starting to talk in riddles. I'm up for that. I'd like to talk in riddles and leave the ends open and leave everyone confused.
Invitation to meditate.
Invitation to meditation. Come to Kyoto. Let's sit together.
If you have a full afternoon to spare.
In silence. Nothing being said. Yeah. All right. Well, I think that clears up the quality issue, really. To me, the only selection that I make of tea is, can I drink it in koicha? Yes, then it's koicha. No. Can I drink it in usecha? Yes, then it's good for usecha. No.
maybe I can put it in a smoothie instead.
Well, I don't. So
you personally don't. Maybe somebody
I
else
personally
can.
don't. So I don't go further with that qualification.
Well, I'll put it out there. I mean, I personally really also just like the taste of matcha, ice cream and lattes and stuff. So there's also that.
Something did follow behind that matcha.
Matcha latte. I mean, obviously, yes, I do like matcha itself, but I think I definitely kind of got into matcha for the taste through those not pure matcha drinks.
Always welcome.
Did we get any questions?
Yes, here's one. What would be an example of an usacha and a koicha? There's not really any example. There is usacha and koicha. Usacha is just the frothy bowl of thin tea that is whipped with the foam on top. So you've got that bright green foam, which is a bit lighter to drink and easier to drink. Koicha is, as I said, very thick. It's almost like a paste. And it's not whipped or frothy, it's just blended and kneaded really, and it becomes this I don't have any other words for it. It's a thick concoction. It's a paste of a lot of tea powder. So the real difference between usacha and koicha is more in the way it's made, and then because of the way it's made, there's a preference for either a higher grade or a middle grade type of matcha. So you can, if you like more bitter flavors, then you can make koicha with usacha and have that. You can also make usacha with the tea for koicha. It's not that it's got to be absolutely
you could
separate.
make either one with any matcha.
Yeah,
it just comes down to which one works better for koicha versus usacha.
So it's preference based as well, and the only thing that a tea store can do really is to make a suggestion. It's like I make my suggestion for this one, have this one for the morning, have this one for your power boost, etc. It is very fascinating indeed, and exactly it is in the way it is prepared. And then of course also the type of tea that you use for that, but more it is in the preparation. Yeah, exactly. I think there was one more question that you had, no?
Yes, kind of going back to sort of the basics about matcha. I think a lot of people, they try matcha or a matcha flavored drink and they don't like it and they kind of stop there, not realizing that that's not really how matcha is supposed to taste if you were to brew it properly. And if you like those drinks, then that's fine, like I do. But if you just try a matcha latte and you say, oh, it tastes funny, I don't like it, and I'm not going to try matcha, properly brewed matcha because of that, then it's kind of a, I don't know, to me, it always, I always notice when people say, I don't like matcha or I don't like green tea, and then they say they've only tried it by, something that's obviously not properly brewed.
Yeah, they only had Kit Kat.
Yeah, they only had the Kit Kat. Oh man, the matcha Kit Kats are so sweet. I can't do them.
They don't even taste anything like.
Oh no, they're just green.
I had one bite of it and it was like.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's more of a matcha latte. It's very creamy, milky kind of. It's like white chocolate, I think. White chocolate matcha.
Right. Yeah, probably. It's just
is what it tastes
fat,
like.
Fat and sugar. It's absolutely not what you want to have with your matcha because it doesn't defeat the purpose. It reverses the purpose.
Anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what matcha is supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people might say it's like very sweet if they've had it in a matcha latte, or it's very bitter if they've had it not brewed properly. But really, it's not such a strong flavor. If you're drinking usacha, at least, it's really not such a strong flavor either way.
It's supposed to be actually very, very gentle and creamy.
Yes.
It could be a bit intense, but it's not supposed to be a very bitter punch, really. It's actually supposed to be very mild. I think the creaminess really does it. And then based on your preference, really, you can play around with the flavor parts.
Of course, some will have more of a grassy flavor or a more
And then
umami flavor.
Depended on, is it blended, is it not blended? If it's blended, you've got more complexity in the flavor, in the aroma. You've got a deeper flavor pattern, a deeper body. And if it's not blended, it's got like one note. It's not monotonous, but it's very simple. And it's easy to recognize the flavors out of it, and the specifications of the tea garden and the cultivar. So that also depends, but really, how it should taste. It first of all, it should be pleasant experience.
Yes.
If it's not pleasant and you really don't like matcha, then it's fair. That's fair. I won't make you drink it. That's more for me. But
it really shouldn't be a overwhelmingly strong flavor.
No, and the lower the quality too, really, the
more bitterness.
The more bitterness. There is this flavor called egumi in Japanese.
Oh, that's a new word.
Which
for
is
me.
basically like you make this face when you drink it. If that happens, then there's a lot of egumi in the flavor, and it shows that it's a very low quality.
Especially if it was brewed very hot, then it can bring out more of that bitterness.
There, we actually touch on a very interesting topic again.
Oh, okay.
Because there's various ways of thinking about that. There's various opinions about it. But I'm of the opinion that you don't brew matcha. You
right,
whip
I guess
it.
I'm coming from a whole leaf green tea background of you have to lower your temperature.
Yeah, and if you make matcha, then it's also said that you have to lower the temperature and do that. But although I see that in tea ceremony, you make sure that your water is not seething. It's just gently boiling. Your temperature is not absolutely hot, but it is above 80 degrees, definitely, because it's on fire in a hot iron kettle. And you have warmed the tea bowl, so the water is really not going to cool down that much when you put it in the tea bowl. It should be fairly hot, and for koicha even, it should be boiling. You actually close the lid again in order to make sure that the temperature inside the kettle rises so high that it begins to boil again, and you have boiling water for your tea, because when it hits the tea powder, it will go down. The temperature will go down. So matcha, well, if you make it with temperature that is too high, it will come out too bitter. I'm always puzzled by that, because you're not extracting anything. The matcha is there, and it's going to be there either way, with colder water or with hotter water. It's going to be there either way, and you just mix it with the water. And the higher the temperature, the better it foams, the better it whips. So I don't think really the flavor changes that very much.
That is true. It doesn't, since you're not brewing it like a whole leaf tea.
Yeah. But that's indeed something that I do hear a lot. It's like, my matcha, do I have to measure my temperature, and how hot does it have to be? Well,
temperature that's comfortable for you to drink.
I would though advise against using a Tefal kettle, pushing the button and good, those very fierce kettles where the water is like and then it like then the button goes back to normal and your water still and then I would say wait a bit until the water settled down, because if the water's still so aggressive, it is probably a lot hotter in there than regular boiled water. And if you do that on your matcha, then I can tell the taste is not going to be that very nice. I actually don't like to use those kettles at all. It's very strange. It does something. I don't know how that heating mechanism works, but it does something to the water that there's something very strange that happens to that water that is boiled in a. I don't want to harm the brand anyhow. But
is it one particular brand or is it just all of them?
But I only have experience with Tefal or Tefal or Tefal.
I actually know that one.
Kettles. Somehow there's something very strange about the water when it is boiled. So I suggest to let it calm down a bit after you've boiled it and then use it.
It's also easier to handle the tea bowl. Maybe it's only me. I tend to be very sensitive to heat. So
you get used to it though after a while, but
maybe
you have to scorch your hand enough.
But why? I don't know. You have to scorch your hand. I don't know. I would rather just not scorch my hand, if at all possible. But I find that even when the water isn't boiling and I try to pick up the tea bowl, I'm like, because it's too hot for me to hold.
Well, it's about building up resistance. I have much more resistance in my left hand than in my right hand. My right hand is more sensitive still because I haven't touched that many hot bowls with it. You pick it up with the right hand, but you hold it on your left hand. So my left hand is much more used to very hot teaware. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, I think we're
pretty much everything that we
done
had
for
to
today.
talk about.
Well, thanks for the chat, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Yes, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to
send us some messages. Let us know some questions. Let us know. We are going to tea picking tomorrow.
Yes.
So I hope to be sharing some of that as well. To be sharing some videos, make a few clips, and then next time we can talk about the new harvest and what we done. Yes. I think that's a good topic for our next chat. We'll still have to decide on the timing for next week, but we'll let you know again on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to stay updated on new live sessions and to watch the replays of previous live sessions as well. Those are still on YouTube and Facebook, and follow the Tea Crane on Instagram so you get all the updates.
Yes, and if you have any preferences to which time slot is better, that is also helpful for us to decide.
Your feedback is always helpful.
Yes, it is. Your feedback and your questions.
Thank you. Enjoy your tea. Keep on brewing. And, see you next time. Bye-bye.